Impact. Impact specializes in staggering enemies. Every impact status briefly interrupts enemy movement and attacks, making it useful for crowd control. It also increases the health threshold at which enemies become vulnerable to Pharaoh finishers, allowing you to execute weakened enemies more easily. Impact is generally strongest against shields and works well for keeping enemies under control. Puncture. Puncture weakens your enemies. Every puncture status reduces the damage that enemy deals while also increasing your critical chance against them. The more stacks you apply, the weaker they become, remember this. It's especially useful for improving survivability during difficult missions. Slash. Instead of dealing all of its damage instantly, Slash applies a bleed effect that deals damage over time. Even better, Bleed completely ignores the enemy armor, making Slash incredibly effective against heavily armored Grineer and high-level enemies. Heat. Heat sets enemies on fire. Burning enemies panic, take damage over time, and gradually lose up to 50% of their armor. Because it both damages and weakens enemies, Heat is one of the strongest standalone elements in the game. Cold. Cold slows enemies down. Movement speed, attack speed, and fire rate are all reduced, while enemies also receive increased critical damage. At enough stacks, enemies become completely frozen in place. Cold is excellent for crowd control. Electricity. Electricity shocks enemies. It stuns the target while chaining electrical damage to nearby enemies. Against groups of enemies, electricity can spread damage surprisingly well. Toxin. Toxin poisons enemies over time. Unlike most damage types, Toxin bypasses shields completely and damages health directly. This makes it especially powerful against corpus enemies that rely heavily on shields. Blast. Heat plus cold creates Blast. Blast places delayed explosive charges on enemies. After a short delay, those charges explode and damage nearby targets. It's really useful against clustered enemies. Radiation. Heat plus electricity creates radiation. Radiated enemies become confused and attack nearby allies instead of you. Against bosses, the radiation instead increases the damage they receive from other enemies. Radiation is an excellent choice for dangerous elite units. Gas. Heat plus Toxin creates gas. Gas creates lingering toxic clouds that continuously damage enemies standing inside them. Even after the original enemy dies, the cloud remains for a short time. Gas works best against tightly packed groups. Magnetic. Cold plus electricity creates magnetic. Magnetic dramatically increases damage dealt to shields and overguard, while preventing shields from naturally regenerating. Once those shields break, the enemy also suffers from additional electricity damage. Because of this, magnetic is the strongest against corpus units. Viral. Cold plus Toxin creates Viral. Viral increases every instance of damage dealt directly to enemy health. As more Viral stacks are applied, enemies become dramatically easier to kill. Combined with Slash, Viral is considered one of the strongest damage combinations in Warframe. Corrosive. Electricity plus Toxin creates Corrosive. Corrosive reduces an enemy's current armor every time its status effect triggers. With enough stacks, enemies can lose up to 80% of their armor. Against heavily armored Grineer, Corrosive remains an extremely powerful choice. One important thing that many beginners don't know is that elemental combinations depend on mod order. Warframe reads your elemental mods from the top left across your mod configuration. The order determines which elements combine together. Changing your mod's placement can completely change your mod's final damage type, even if you're using the exact same mod. So new players, please be careful about that. Thank you for watching.